Hey folks, it's me again, Spider, coming at you with another creator level. But you might be, well, you're not even wondering, because if you can read, then you know who this is. And I guess without further ado, this is every rated Lyod level. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one to me, because I was looking for old creators to do this like this kind of video on, and I know Experienced D is on the list at some point, but I was like, let's get another person that may not be of it, probably is well known due to their levels probably being in map packs, and that's where I looked. And I saw Lyod in there, and I was like, you know what, if he passes my unspoken rule that I'm not going to reveal exactly what is, then, you know, they get a video. And I look, and, you know, well, they did. And Lyod is known for some pretty, not insane, but like pretty good, yeah, I think I'd use that, pretty good map pack levels. Cause even when I was revisiting these, I was like, you know what, this ain't that bad. I don't think Lyod has an L level, a really bad one. I was playing through these. Now what you probably might be wondering, or if you know because you played map packs and you probably hate them, Lyod is famous for, like, his most famous level is Lights and Thunder, which has a crazy amount of downloads and likes, but he's also got, like, ClutterStep, ErrorFunk, Hyper Ice Jumper, and, like, Vertigo. And then there's another one called Theory of Something, but I don't know if that one's in a map pack, but if it is, then, you know, good on him. But anyway, we're going to be jumping into the showcase, and I will leave you guys my review about what I really think of, I guess, the decoration. Spoiler, no spoilers, you guys probably know the drill with these things. Anyway, I'll let the showcase speak for itself, so you guys can learn either how to beat a level or just want this as background noise. So, you know, without further ado, please enjoy the video. And I'll see you guys whenever we get to the intro. Yeah. Hey folks, quite the, well, you guys made it to the outro / results portion where I get to yap again. Hopefully it won't be 5 minutes long, but we'll see. Without further ado, let's get into the results. Now there were coins here. Like we're gonna start off with the coins, and the coins aren't gonna appear on screen. That little like score tally that I do, because there's simply no reason for me to rank coins. We're not doing all that. It's one level. The coins were whatever. 7 out of 10. They didn't make me want to pull my hair out, but they also weren't like the craziest coins. They just were a simple go out of the way type feel, and it was in a 2.0 level, so yuck. Anyway, to the decoration. I will say, the earlier levels, like, you can definitely see the age, and it's like, oh, yeah, freaking, oh, no, type deal. what happened? Why are we doing this, right? But as Lloyd was creating more and like really stepping up his gameplay and decoration, it was honestly not bad. I would give, and by the end of it, like I would say maybe the end of it for me was like aftermach, which is the second to last level that Lloyd created before it was like, you know what, I'm good. Y'all have a good one, and left. Honestly, the decoration, pretty good. Especially like 1.9, the 1.9 decoration wasn't too crazy, but it wasn't too basic. Even though I guess it technically is, but you know, I can take basic. I like basic. I'm a simple and an easy to please person. The only reason that I'm gonna give decoration an 8 out of 10 is literally the 2.0 level. It would have been a 9 out of 10 by the if I was just ranking everything else, but the 2.0 level, I don't know, man. Like 2.0 is like a cool thing in its own regard, but it's like you really gotta know how to use the editor for it to not look, I don't know, weird. And it definitely looked weird, but I won't completely slander it because it still played fine. I didn't have a problem with it. It just, like, I don't know, man. It didn't make me sad. It's just, I don't know, man. I guess I don't really vibe with 2.0 decoration. I think I've been plagued by too much nonsense with move triggers and like that for me to really appreciate them properly. So, unfortunately, 8.10 for the decoration. Now onto the gameplay. Lloyd, I don't know what you did, man, but that gameplay, kind of fire. I'm not even gonna lie. For a map pack level, especially for old map pack levels, I thought when I was revisiting like obviously since I played all of the rated levels, then I'm gonna be revisiting some of the levels that Lloyd had in here, and honestly, they did not disappoint. I guess in general, map pack levels are a bit overhated, but I kind of can see why, right? But this is just for Lloyd's levels. That gameplay cooked. Like, I couldn't even complain. Like, I don't want to attempt things unless it's super easy by anything. But I still had a good time playing it. Like, none of his levels made me want to pull out my hair, throw a shoe at somebody, or steal somebody's left shoe and watch them suffer for the rest of the day. But, you know, it was good. And for that, I'm going to give Lloyd a 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 on the gameplay. Because unfortunately, 2.0 level brings it down. But other than that, Lloyd did alright. He did a pretty good job. And if Lloyd would have returned, I would love to see him take a crack at the 2.2 editor, but I know it would be a little crazy to look at, especially nowadays, all the new buttons and stuff. So if they came back and just made a couple more like 1.9 levels, but maybe did some like cool stuff with the other things to like maybe flash it out that you gotta do, then I'd be for it. But yeah, over and all, Lloyd has some pretty fantastic levels. I don't have a complaint. Definitely have some favorites though. I think ClutterStep is probably my favorite because I guess it's funny because it's like it uses ClutterStep and it's for its song and whatnot. And I was like, you know what? I was expecting ClutterFunk, and I came out pleasantly surprised. Level played well. It wasn't annoying. Probably my favorite one out of the bunch, honestly. And yeah, there you go. Spider's favorite level for Lloyd is a ClutterStep. Take that as you will. And yeah, that's gonna really do it for me on this one. I hope my yapping wasn't too boring, but yeah. So yep, that's gonna do it for this video, guys. You know, like and subscribe if you liked it, dislike it if you dislike it. Leave a comment telling me what I can do. I'm trying to figure out how to do these again in my old, usual, non-serious style. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. So until then, enjoy whatever you're doing in your life, and make sure you have fun doing it. Don't lose your joy and whimsy, folks. And that's going to do it for me. So, again, I'll see y'all in the next video. Because once again, not even I know my schedule. Goodbye!